Hello, I'm Jim O'Brien with Own Guard Solutions, and this time I thought we'd take a different direction with our videos. Not that we have a lot of videos to have a specific path we're usually on or anything, but I thought I'd try something different. And this time we're going to be talking about, and I'm going to be showing you how to install a red dot on a particular pistol. And in this case, I'm going to be installing a red dot on my new Smith & Wesson M&P M2.0 10mm, and that's a mouthful. But I thought this would be a good thing, and hopefully we're going to show you from start to finish without any time lapse or editing. And so before we get started, I just want to go ahead and make sure this weapon is cleared and safe for handling. Anytime you're doing modifications, updates, additions to, or cleaning your weapon, you certainly want to make sure that it's unloaded ahead of time to avoid and keep yourself from having any issues. So first things first, I've already taken the magazine out of this weapon, so there is no magazine in it. I'm going to rack the slide a few times. If by chance this happened to be a revolver, I would simply open the cylinder and visually inspect to make sure there were no rounds in that cylinder. In this case, semi-automatic. I'm going to rack the slide. I'm going to lock the slide back. Again, no magazine. I'm going to look down into the chamber. I don't see anything. I may even take my finger and just make doubly sure. So I can confirm that this weapon is now clear, no ammo, and we're good to work on it as it is. Just to take that a step further, anytime that I work on a firearm, again, whether I'm making an addition like a red dot, I'm changing out something like the trigger, anything, or cleaning it, my magazines and the ammo for the firearm are in a completely different room. I don't want there to be any opportunities for ammo to be introduced into the space that I'm working. So just know, and I know you can't see my tabletop in here, there is no ammo to be found, and there's not even any magazines to be found. So this firearm's ready to go at this point. The red dot, or in this case, the green dot that we're going to be installing is a Holosun HE508T green. I have quite a bit of experience with this one now because this 10mm, while it's not going to be a regular carry, I am planning to carry it primarily for bear protection, but also to keep myself from having to carry multiple pistols when I travel. Specifically when I get back to Alaska again, or if I'm out west. The idea behind this 10mm is I'll be able to carry it concealed or open, whatever, for personal defense, but also if I'm out in the wilderness, or when I'm out in the wilderness and I run across any grizzly or brown. So the HE508T green I've had quite a bit of experience with. And the idea being is that while price is certainly a consideration, and there's a lot of cool red dots on the market, I already have this one. I have it on defensive carry weapons that I have, and I don't want to change the sights that I have to get used to or figure out how they operate or what color they are, or whatever else, where the adjustments for elevation or windage are. I want a consistent experience when it comes to my sights, which is why I've elected to go with it yet again, another Holosun HE508T, and I just like green. So with that, I'm going to show you what I did, and hopefully it'll go smoothly for us. Thanks so much. So here we are. We're going to attempt, this is our first attempt, to install a red dot onto my new Smith & Wesson M&P M2.0 10mm. I was, if I didn't mention it already, I was late to the party relative to red dots, to RMRs. Initially, when they first started getting talked about a number of years ago, personally, I just could not understand or wrap my head around why it is I would want to or need to upgrade to a red dot. And then, quite honestly, I mean, if I'm being candid, at the time, the pricing was, at least for me, prohibitive. I was shooting just fine with iron sights, as I always had. Bumped the camera there, sorry about that. As I always had, and I just could not justify in my head why I might need a red dot. But a number of years later, a few years ago, I decided to give it a try. And so I think the very first weapon that I ever put a red dot on was a VP9, and from there it was smooth sailing. And for me, having some vision issues now at this point in my life, I was like, this is a no-brainer. Where have you been all my life? Why haven't I done this before now? So now I try to put red dots, or I do have red dots on all of my carries, and I rotate through a few weapons in the mix. Again, as I was explaining earlier, this is kind of my latest. Not that it's intended to be a primary carry, and I will not carry it as a primary, except when I am out west or in Alaska, because I think it's a good split between having both something for the animules as well as being able to carry something on my hip, open carry or concealed carry, whatever I choose. But again, it's not an all the time carry for sure. So for me, vision was a big thing. And then, you know, I think, suffice it to say, like so many things, pricing has come down over the years. And so while they're still not cheap per se, they're far more reasonable than they once were. And again, I'm not doing the budget shopping things with these. It's still a primary sighting tool for my weapons. And so I don't want to be cheap with them. And for me, the primary concern there was any firearm that I do pick up that I am going to carry with, I want the same sighting mechanism on all of them. So again, that's why I'm running with, yet again, another Holosun HE508T. And instead of doing red, I did green. And why? First, and not very important at all, is green's my favorite color, but that's not the primary reason why I did it. I did some research and come to find out red is a little strenuous on the human eye. And that's because it is on the outskirts of the visual spectrum that we can see on. And so if you want to think of red as being on the very edge, that makes it a difficult color to see given, you know, context and situation, like so many things. Whereas green is easier to see by comparison because it's more in the middle of the road or the middle of the color spectrum. So, and green is better for some astigmatisms if you do have any sort of vision issues as well. And I find it easy to see. Now, they say in daylight it can cause some contrast issues. I have not experienced a whole lot of that yet, other than to say you will want to turn it up in the bright sunlight to be able to see the green dot. But other than that, I haven't found it to be a big challenge. And then, you know, once you set your level that you need it, and at most conditions, you know, you're good to go. So it's not like you're having to change up the red dot brightness on a regular basis. So it's easier to see, it's less strenuous. There's some argument that green, because it's easier to see, you don't have to have it quite as high a brightness adjustment as you might a red. And so therefore there's an argument that green may actually consume less batteries. I don't know that I'm convinced that that's any more than marginal, but hey, I'll take it, right? Another benefit for green. So there are green dots in the mix, and that's what I have. And again, I wanted to be consistent across any firearm that I was wanting to carry for defensive purposes. So that's what got us to this one. And again, I want to reiterate that we are not affiliates with any of these companies, any of the products that we might see in this video or mention in this video. And we have not been, and we likely are not going to ever get paid for mentioning products in these videos that we shoot for you, at least at this point. So just to let you know, this is me doing this on my own opinions and my own experiences so far with these products. Now, as far as this pistol goes, I'm using my new Gerber tool here to prop up the gun. As far as this particular firearm goes, I am new to this particular 10mm. In fact, this gun represents two firsts for me. I've never owned a Smith & Wesson of any sort, and I've never had a 10mm up until now, so this is new. In spirit of full transparency, I now only have about 50 rounds through this weapon as it stands right now. And so I'm looking forward to getting this RMR on here, this red dot on here, or in my case, this green dot, to see how it does once I get it sighted in. And of course, you know, once you get a red dot on here, they typically come, usually, at least in my experience, somewhat centered already, but you will have to center it and aim it like you would any other sights once you get it on. So yeah, this is all new to me. This Smith & Wesson and a 10mm, and I have to say, you know, I've always heard about the massive recoil 10mm have. I don't know what it is, and maybe it's this particular firearm. Yes, it is certainly snappy, would be one way. And I started carrying with a .40 caliber, so I was somewhat familiar with snappy shooting firearms, or firearms that had a little bit more recoil than some others. So is the 10 comparable to the .40? It's reminiscent of the .40, I would say, from personal experience. It's snappy. It does have some recoil, but it's not like your wrists and arms and hands are going to get tired after shooting it at the range for the day or whatever. It's very manageable. Again, hats off to Smith & Wesson, I think, in part to whatever they've built here with the M2.0 probably helps mitigate some of this. This particular weapon has a 4.6-inch barrel, which I'm sure helps some. Of course, it is polymer frame, but even with the polymer frame and that lightweightness, it's still not bad to manage. So that's all I'm going to say here. Again, a couple of firsts. And so let's go on to the Holosun, getting ready to install this thing. So I can't say that this is 100% fresh out of the box reveal. Again, in the spirit of transparency, I have opened this. I have sized the Torx screws that come in here, as well as that of the base plate, the cutout for the red dot, a red dot. So I did take it out. I did make sure we kind of knew what screws to utilize, etc., what base plate to use, etc., before getting started. And just to back up for a moment before we get into this reveal and box opening for the second time, the way Smith & Wesson sets this up is they send it along with several, dare I say, plastic plates that you'll need to, once you get this cover plate off where the cutout is, you have a choice of plates, and they're all, and screws, and it's all based on the red dot that you've opted to install on the Smith & Wesson, along with some screws, which you can see it looks like they have some probably the equivalent, or what's supposed to be the equivalent of red Loctite already on there and dried. There is one apparently aluminum plate in here in the mix. I'm not sure what red dot is supposed to go with, but these are mostly plastic. So if you're concerned with that, there are at least one, and I'm sure there's multiple manufacturers of aluminum plates that you can use instead of. But for this install, we're going to use one. Just to be specific, we're going to wind up using, and again, it's plastic as most of them are, I don't know if you can see that. I'll try to get it in the light, but this is the Type 1 plate that comes in the kit. I believe there's a total of 7 in that bag, along with various screw sets to mix. I will tell you that while I did get the screws that appeared to be the correct ones for the plate and for the sight, I wound up opting for the screws that come with the equivalent of apparently blue Loctite with the Holosun. They were a little tiny bit shorter, and so that just gave me a better peace of mind, because what you don't want is, and you'll see, when you take off the default or the standard screws that come with the cover plate for the cutout, the screws that you'll put in there that have to go through, and we'll talk through all this because we're going to walk through it all. The screws that go down there, you don't want to make sure that you want to make sure they're not too long and go down, because they can have a tendency, if they're too long of a screw, you know, not the right screw for the setup, they can cause some shooting issues. I've experienced that with one of my CZs in the past. So you do want to be careful of the screws that you use. And I can't tell you what the length of them are, this thread pitch, but they are specific to the firearm and to the base plates utilized. So let's get started. So in no particular order here, I'm going to take this base plate off. And again, this firearm comes cut out for red dot usage, which is a good thing. Not all do, and the ones that don't, you know, you got to send off and have somebody cut it out. And I think anytime it's done at the factory or similarly, it's a better setup, because the tolerances will likely be better, et cetera, and fitment will likely be better, most importantly. So I will tell you, and again, we have no affiliation, but from my personal experience, the Wicca toolkit of bits and sockets and whatever is a godsend, especially if you're doing small, precise, precision work like this. You just can't go wrong. And in this case, and for all the screws that we're going to be using, we're going to be using a 5/64 Allen wrench bit. So I'm going to get that out, and just give me a second. I'm going to get the Wicca grip out for this. Put that in there like that, and then all I'm going to do, and these are tougher to get started than now, because again, I've already broken these free to make sure that I was going to be able to get them out and tell you the right things, but they can be tough to get started. But 5/64 Allen is what you need to get them both out. And you will see now that I've taken them out once, they're easier to get out again. And they do have, or they did have, some sort of Loctite-like substance on them to hold them in, which is good, because, you know, with the recoil of any weapon, but especially this one, you want your screws to stay in where they're supposed to. So once you get those out, the cover plate is actually really easy to take out. It's plastic, got a textured cup. Cover top on it, sorry, and you'll see down in there that there's 2 sets of screws. The one is for the screws that held the face plate in, the base plate in, to cover the cutout, as you see here. Let me show you the side of the slide here. You'll see the cutout. So one set of thread holes are for that cover, and you won't use those again. And then the others, which are these forward facing, and it may depend on the red dot and the base plate you need to use in here, but the forward facing, at least for me in this weapon, and the Holosun HE508T, are going to use these forward threaded ports here. So I have already, as I showed you, figured out what plate to use. And for this Smith & Wesson M&P M2.0 10mm, and yes, that's a mouthful, but I want to be precise, you'll choose the Type 1 base plate. And again, it's plastic. If you want an aluminum, they are certainly being made. They can cost a little bit for them, but it might be a better option. But for now, I'm going to use this. I'm going to put it in here. You'll see these raised circular tabs, and you'll see the matching holes on the base plate. I'm just going to line those up and push it into place. and you'll see that both sets of screw holes show through the slots. It doesn't matter because you'll see once we get the sight on there that there's only one set that will work, but you'll see that the raised alignment points, if you will, the circles, I'm just pressing down. It's a pretty snug fit, so they'll almost snap into place. And then these two forward tabs you see here are meant to go into the bottom of the red dot, which I'll show you here in a minute. So we're doing this live. I'm not going to do any cutaways or editing. So Holosun makes a pretty nice plastic box for their stuff. You open it up, they've got some extra foam padding in the mix, which is nice. They've got, you know, a warranty QR code there for you to go to, and I'm sure there's a link somewhere along the line. I'll get to that later. You'll have your instruction manual, which I never read or seldom read in the mix, which is nice in a bag for you. You have a little micro cloth to keep your red dot lens inside and out clean, which is a nice touch. That is something that, not necessarily just this one because it is a tiny one, but some sort of soft microfiber towel or microfiber lens wipe like this will be your best friend over time because they do get fingerprints on them, they get smudges and smears, and they even get some gunpowder from the smoke build up over time. And then most importantly, we get our Holosun HE508T, and in this case green. Very, very nice. You can see I already got a couple of fingerprints on it. This one's super nice. It's got a limited lifetime warranty on it. It's a titanium housing and square, so you know it's built tough, being made out of titanium. A lot of times you hear guys opposed to moving to red dots. They're concerned about batteries and batteries going dead and EMPs and yada, yada, yada. Basically, they're old school guys that don't want to consider something new, potentially better, and I would argue in this case better. But the answer's been provided with this model, and there's others that do it too, but this has a small set of solar panels built in to compensate should your battery die. Now, Holosun, I believe, touts something like, and don't quote me on this, but I think they tout like a potential 50,000 hours of battery life out of these things, because you got to think they're not consuming a whole lot. But should battery life become an issue, this does have solar power built in. The nice thing that I like, in addition to the limited lifetime warranty, the titanium body and the solar power backup, just in case, is that some models of red dots, you have to take the red dot off the weapon in order to get to the battery, because the battery compartment's on the bottom. One of the things that I really like about the Holosuns, not saying that there's others that don't do it, but the battery access is on the side. So you do not have to take your Holosun red dot off your weapon in order to change the battery when that day arises. You have your right and left or your windage adjustment here on the side, and then you have your elevation up and down here on top. So very straightforward. The other thing that I personally was looking for in a red dot is, even with some of the other Holosuns, even with, I think, the 507 series Holosun, they do a lot of white lettering on there, and I wanted something black. And yeah, there's some gold lettering here, and they do it on the elevation and windage adjustment too, but it's very subtle by comparison. Like Holosun's not all in white. There's not a lot of bright painting and branding. Yes, it's stamped there in the side, but it's subtle in my opinion. So I really like the majority of the sight being black. So I'll shut up now and get this thing on. So we've put on our plastic base plate that came with the Smith & Wesson pistol. I'm simply gonna look to get the sight on now. You'll notice here that part of this base plate has this backstop that's a little forward of the back of the cutout itself. and that's to make this particular sight fit a little bit more snugly. As I mentioned earlier, I would point out, you can see here on the bottom, in addition to the screw holes that we're going to use, you see these two indents or indentations. They're a little deeper than indentations, but you know what I mean. And those are going to fit right down top of these posts. And again, it's kind of an alignment thing, but it also is to help hold that sight on, so they pop down in there. The sight does not come, in this particular case, all the way forward to the front of the cutout, but that's okay. It fits up mostly up against, and I'm trying to make sure you can see here, fits up mostly up against the back of that plastic plate, and you can kind of feel side to side and back to back. It's kind of in there. Now, again, the plate set that came with the Smith & Wesson came with some screws. These were two that came in there. After comparing them to what comes with the Holosun, which I'm about to get out, I felt like these might be a little longer than I wanted to go with. But again, out of the set, these are the best fitting out of what they provided. But I'm going to try to show you why I went with what came with Holosun. So let's look at that. So what comes with Holosun, and yeah, it fell off a little bit, but that's okay. We're getting ready to mount it up, is two sets of screws, tiny bolts, whatever you call them. And again, they're all set up with what appears to be a dried version of Loctite blue. I don't know what it is, but I'm assuming it's something similar. And if you'll notice, or hopefully you can notice here, and what I'm trying to show you, and I know the light's kind of funky in here right now, is one set is a little shorter than the other. And you know, you're going to choose the one that works best with your firearm. This firearm, my 10mm, just happens, I'm going to put the shorter ones back, to utilize the longer ones, at least it seems to me. And they give you 4, which is nice. There may be cases, which I don't know, that you need all 4, but as it is, I'm looking at this as 2 spares, which is really nice. Holosun also includes a tool for you. So if you don't have your own Torx or your own Allen, you know, you've got a little tool. I wouldn't look to this for long-term heavy-duty use, but it's nice that they include it and get you up and running faster with it. These came with the Holosun, and I don't know, hopefully you can see this. You can tell that the ones that came with the Holosun are a little bit shorter than the ones that came with the plates from Smith & Wesson. Now again, I may find out in time, because I'm new to this setup with this particular weapon, I may find out in time that I need these longer ones. But again, what I'm trying to avoid is jamming up the slide or the operation of the firearm with a screw that might be too long for it. So I've decided, I'm going to put that aside, I've decided to go with what came with the Holosun because I've used these on other firearms. I'm going to put this other one over here too. These are the two that came with the original cutout cover, so I'm going to move those to the side. So I'm going to pick up the weapon again. I'm going to make sure the plate's in there good, and then I'm going to remount my sight and get that on. And then I'm going to drop these screws down into the holes, and you can see they kind of drop right down in there. And then I'm going to take my 5/64 Allen, and what I'm going to do before I start trying to crank down on these is I'm going to go lefty-loosey. I'm going to go counterclockwise, and I'm going to hear a pop. And what that's telling me, and the reason why I'm doing that, is to better line up that screw or this tiny bolt to seat once I do start going righty-tighty and tightening it down. So now that it's popped a few times, I'm going to start tightening it down. And look, because of the Loctite-like substance on there, it might be snug to get started. But as long as it's not just completely shut down or stopped, you're okay. What you don't want to do is give it a lot of force if it's fighting you back and not moving, because the last thing you want to do is strip out these screw holes, because now you've screwed yourself and your slide, right? Because you'll have to either tap them out yourself or send this slide in and have them fixed if they even can. So you want to be careful of that. But what I'm doing is, again, I'm going to go lefty-loosey. It's kind of a, you can hear it pop. Hear that? But it's kind of a feel thing too. So once I feel like it's in there straight enough, then I'm going to begin tightening it down. And again, I don't want to nut up on it too much, but it's going to be a little snug, and then I want to keep going. As long as I'm not fighting it when it's completely shut down, it should be good to go. And I'm going to snug down the other one, and now that I've got them both in, I can kind of work back and forth, and I don't want to over tight them. You're right, I'm not using a torque wrench. One could argue that I probably should. Sometimes what I like to do, and I didn't do it today, but sometimes what I like to do is, even though it's come with the dried blue stuff on the threads already, is I'll go ahead sometimes and add my own additional fresh blue Loctite, and that way I know. And the nice thing about blue is you can more easily crack it loose if you need to than red, so I go with blue. That's just a personal thing. I think it's the right way to go, but I'm just kind of going to go work. And again, I'm not looking to over tight these, but now you can see that the red dot is mounted on the firearm, on the slide. I did not have to take the slide off the frame to do it. I did it all. You know, there's two things, and this is just kind of a sidebar note. There's two things that gripe me about Smith & Wesson so far. And again, this is my first Smith & Wesson. First of all, so many gun manufacturers today are putting their weapons into nice plastic cases. And are they, you know, long-term plastic cases that if you use them all the time, they would hold up 10, 15, 20 years? Probably not. But they're nice, right? It's nice to get a firearm that you've spent a chunk of cash on in a nice plastic case. And others even are putting them in, you know, I don't know, nylon, ballistic nylon, heavy duty nylon, let's say, cases. So a lot, and I'd almost argue most firearm manufacturers now, pistols at least, are putting their firearms into nicer cases. Two complaints I have about Smith & Wesson so far, well, three technically, and that's for a different video, but one is they put their firearms in cardboard boxes. It's like, really, everybody else, even for less money, is putting their firearms in plastic cases or nylon cases. And the other complaint, and you know, you probably picked up on it too, is this plate that you have to put in here to mount this particular firearm, and several others evidently use a similar plate, is plastic. Like, you know, like my CZs, I had to buy an aluminum base plate to use with this 508. So yes, I had to buy it separately, but at least I could get an aluminum, and I can get an aluminum for this firearm too. But Smith & Wesson does a plastic. Now, in all fairness, unlike CZ, because, you know, the nice thing with Smith & Wesson has done is given you a plate that you can use from the get-go. And so, yes, it's plastic. Arguably, it might not hold up long-term like aluminum, but at least with the plastic base plates they supply you, you can get a sight mounted sooner than later versus having to wait on one that you have to order separately like I had to do with my CZ. So you know, I wish it wasn't plastic. I wish they'd go ahead and make aluminum, but at least with the plastic, they allow you to get your red dot on your firearm and therefore up and running sooner than later. And I think at a point I'll probably replace this plastic, and then when I'll do, I'll look to add the additional Loctite on those screws to get going. But with that being said, here we are, folks. I don't know that you can see. I will try to line it up for you. It's kind of hard to do this through. There we go a little bit. It's not super clear because the mobile phone's not going to be super clear. But we have a red dot now on our M&P 10mm. So with that, I want to thank you for watching. If you liked what you see here, please like the video down below, subscribe to our channel. We're going to be adding a lot of content. As we've said before, we're just kind of getting started in the video arena and hope to do a lot more of this. If you like this, if you want to see a red dot put on something else, let us know. If you want to see us clean a particular firearm, if we have access to it, we'll be happy to do that for you too. But either way, like and follow us, share our content, subscribe to our channel here on YouTube, and we greatly appreciate you, and we'll see you soon. Thanks so much.